hang off his head. I'd have been the only sitting former vice president to beat up a sitting president and lose the Democratic nomination. I'm just gonna let everybody know. You don't bring people's kids into it. That's a really, really low blow. He could have brought up the fact that the man's son took money. That's okay. That's part of the debate. But to start talking about his son's substance abuse issues and to start discussing him getting kicked out of the military, no one's talking about him draft dodging. No one's talking about how his kids never even served. So, and a lot of people are like, well, Lene, have you made up your mind who you voting for? That's my personal opinion. And I have to say, with us as a people, I'm tired of us being reactive and not proactive. We get ourselves into positions, and I'm not talking about black people, I'm talking about United States citizens. We do not do informed voting. And then when it comes time to vote, we vote based on emotion. Just like Amendment 3 in the state of Missouri. Do not vote yes on Amendment 3. Vote no on Amendment 3. We already, if you're a regular voter, we already voted for that in 2018. So why then would it come back up? But it's got provisions that give the governor absolute power. Why would that come back up? Because they are trying to put things in place that give the governor control over local and, give him really absolute power. We don't want that. We don't want that. We already voted for everything on Amendment 3 back in 2018. So state of Missouri, if anyone in the state of Missouri, if you're listening to me, just vote no on Amendment 3. You already voted for it. They're giving, and they make it seem like you're voting to eliminate and put caps on lobby gifts. That's not the case. When you look at the numbers that you're capping, it doesn't even make a difference. It's less than 1%. So it doesn't even make a difference. But they get us by emotion. We as a people in the United States, we vote emotionally. We don't vote informed. We have 2 to 3 weeks before the election. Everyone should be researching every person. Go to ballotpedia.com, and everyone should be researching every person who's on their local ballot. Research every single person who's on your local ballot. And the reason for doing that is so that you know who and what you're voting for. Research every single amendment that is on your ballot. George said, well, he just lost 300 points in the stock market. Oh, he lost more than that. He lost more than that. George said, we don't even consider the next 5 moves. And here's the thing, George. When you get to breaking down communities, all other communities make moves 30 to 50 years in advance. When you get to looking at black communities, we make moves like next week. We make moves a month in advance, or if even 2 months to 90 days in advance. But all other communities, they make moves 30 to 50 years in advance. They know what they're doing, and so they strategically place things for their children and their children's children. And that's the reason why the politicians pander to the black community for the vote at the last minute, because they need some people to push them over the edge so that they can win. I will say this, I've said it once before, I will say it again. I want all black people to research super PACs, SUPERPACS. Research super PACs. When you research super PACs, you then learn that those with the largest super PACs, the largest amount of money in their super PACs, and we can have several of them, it doesn't have to be one, they get exactly what they want. I'm going to say this. Everyone was accusing the prosecutor in the Breonna Taylor case. They were calling him Uncle Tom. They were saying he didn't like black people. They were calling him Uncle Ruckus, this, that, and the other. And I don't like Uncle Tom, because Uncle Tom, if you read the book, Uncle Tom was not the turn on the black people one. It was Sambo. He was the one that turned on the black people. But literally, not me, because I already knew what was happening. I told everybody there was going to be that he was going to make a way to come out of that grand jury without any indictments, because he minded the business that paid him. When you are owned, when certain groups of people own you, they control your career, they control your political moves. You mind the business that pays you, or else your career is dead in the water. That's what happened with the Breonna Taylor case. And the beautiful thing about it is one of the jurors made an issue of the fact that it was never brought up, some of the things that he said. That's the reason why he got emotional when he was giving that speech. I tell people I saw right through it. When he was giving that speech, I said, he knows he's about to go down, because he knows he's busted. And he's going to stand up here. His spirit told him, you're in a world of trouble. And that's when he got shook and got emotional during that speech. But now you see how politics works. I will never, ever, ever, ever condemn a protester, because my mother was one of the protesters in Kansas City at high school for civil rights. She was a high school protester out there fighting cops and stuff like that. And they were beating the high schoolers. They were beating kids at Westport High, beating them up. Cops had no problem. And all they were doing was protesting for their rights. And so I always say protesting is a young person's game, though. The older people, we have to get our minds together. We have to get together strategically. Black people have the greatest buying power in the U.S. We spend the most money. We spend trillions of dollars in the U.S. We need to put that money together. And everyone always says, Lyne't, what's your solution? I'm giving y'all my solution now. Put together several super PACs. Our super PACs address one for each issue. And we start funneling money into those super PACs, but we make sure that they give us a great accounting. You mix the super PACs with your vote. You mix the vote with the lobbyists. And then you buy the politicians. You own them. Simple. That's the game that everybody else been playing for years. And I don't want to mention a certain group of people who own everything and shut everybody down, because whenever you mention their name, they got so much clout that people come back, start apologizing, and then next thing you know, everything's shut down. But that's how they do it. They own super PACs. They buy the politicians. They own. If we have the most buying power, why are we still begging? Because money talks. My uncle taught me years ago, when I watched my uncle go pay cash for a brand new car, cash. And then he talked the man down off the car like $9,000-$10,000. And I was like, dang, And he said, guess what, baby? I said, what? He said, money talks. He said, you got this cash money? He said, you can show up with a check and they ain't gonna respect that check. But you got that cash money? He said, they gonna give you what you want. And see, when they know that there is money, the Koch brothers, they don't play with them Koch brothers. Why don't they play with them? Because the Koch brothers got money on top of money on top of money. And they are able, the Koch brothers are the reason why there's a such thing called corporate personhood, where corporations have the exact same voice as the person speaking to you through this mic. That's another thing that we as a people need to stop being reactive, be proactive, get to knowing about politics, know how it works. How many of y'all know that Pendergast is the reason why, from Kansas City, Missouri, is the reason why Supreme Court judges all over the U.S., including the federal, are chosen the way they are. I'm so happy they're doing a Kansas City Library thing about it. I'm happy they're doing that. I'm upset that I'm going to have to miss it, but I had learned that years ago. I learned a lot about Pendergast. Pendergast was so cold that Harry S. Truman was president, and he never stepped foot back in Kansas City because Pendergast helped him get elected, and he didn't live up to his promises when he got to that White House. So Harry S. Truman, he skedaddled on over to St. Louis and finished up his time in his life in St. Louis. He never lived in Kansas City permanently until I think Pendergast died. That's how cold that man was. So what I tell people is, and Pendergast is like, his name carries weight like a super PAC. His money carried weight like a super PAC. He bought politicians like what you would do in a super PAC. If we want to see things change for us as a people, we have to begin to Pendergast things. Now, can't run around killing folks. That ain't gonna happen. But what I'm saying is, you have to be willing to put your money where your mouth is. Money talks, as my uncle taught me. And when they know you got that money, a lot of people ain't worried about your credit. They care less about your credit. Now, if your credit is good, this is one thing I learned from certain activities as a young person. When your credit is good with everyone you know, they're willing to extend you grace. I don't know if y'all can understand what I'm saying. When they know that you're a person of your word, they're willing to extend you grace. So when you own, Mr. Walker, I can't see my comments, but when you own, and I'm going to keep saying own politicians, I'm not saying that's your notifications, but I'm not saying, oh, George said gerrymandering, and he said already caps in place. Yeah. When you've been terrorized and dehumanized for so long, you no longer believe in the future. And that's the thing about it. We have to open up our mind and realize Black people believe in the future, because Black people steady have kids. So you can't tell me you don't believe there's a future, because we would eliminate all birth if that's the case. But the problem is, we don't want to believe in the future. Our ancestors were terrorized and dehumanized, and they literally began to put things in place that they knew they'd never see. We have to remember that the people of the civil rights movement, everyone from the civil rights movement, they were born in the early 1900s to like the 1930s and 40s. But they planned on this day. They knew they wasn't going to see this day, but they planned on it. The problem is, we choose as a people to give ourselves excuses, because we ain't terrorized like they was. They were terrorized. And it was law to terrorize them. It was legal. Them Proud Boys run around here and get shot by Pookie and them up the street. Ain't nobody gonna say nothing, but what was they doing in the neighborhood? They was looking for trouble. And Pookie and them gonna get off. Now, hopefully Pookie and them ain't got no felonies and they had their guns on them. But other than that, the Proud Boys ran wild anytime before the 60s and the 70s and things like that. So we use that as an excuse for us to not put together our own futures. I tell people this: we have to begin to plan 30 to 50 years in advance, not even 100 years in advance. What do we want to see in place for our lineage, for our legacy, for our generations? What do we want to see in place for them? Do we want to see another Black president? What are the qualifications for that Black president? Do we want to, because literally people say, and I can't stand this, people will say, oh, well, you know, there'll never be another Black president. Well, with all these Black people that's spending all this money, that our vote matters, if there's never another Black president in our lifetime, that's our fault. Because we have the power. We spend enough money. We have the vote. Why can we not get another Black president up in there? Why not? Why not? I'm trying to figure out why we can't. Because why can we not make sure these laws are built for us? Because see, here's the thing a lot of people don't understand. We are beginning to see the laws that were put in place for so-called minorities. They never officially said Black people. They said so-called minorities. we're seeing those laws put in place, and they're used by everybody, and they are allowed to be used by everyone but Black people. The city of Kansas City, Missouri government has a law which I think is ridiculous and should be raised. Mr. Forrest Tyson, tell me if this number is right. 20% of the contracts have to go to a minority business. 20% of our government contracts must go to a minority business. 20%? So if you have a woman-owned business, you have a Asian, or a woman who claims she's a woman who looks white, who claims she's Native American or half Mexican or whatever. They call them blancas in Mexico and Latina culture. They call them blancas, which is the Mexican women that literally look white, and the men are blancos. So you're telling me that the people who come in and can literally snatch that contract off from under a Black contractor, literally for real, was raised white, and they know nothing about their own culture, or just a straight up white woman can snatch the contract. See, 20% seems like a lot when you have businesses that are small and disadvantaged businesses. That's a lot of money to them. But I feel like we should use our power and our money and our voting power to say, hey, you need to raise that more likely up to 40%. 40%. See, I'm the kind to say 50-50. Let the white boys, or excuse my French, y'all. Let the non-minorities get 50 and let the minorities get 50. Why not? But that's not reasonable. But 40 and 41% is reasonable. You get what I'm saying? And so then you have a bigger pool. Then you have a bigger pot. Then you have the companies that can come in and make more money, and then they can compete without having to subcontract under J.E. Dunn. Because J.E. Dunn gets the contracts, and then J.E. Dunn subcontracts them out. See, I got to learn how this politics game works. J.E. Dunn made all their money off of the Kansas City, Missouri school district. When they sank $30 million, now they sank $3 million into Central High School and then built a $33 million school, and then imploded the high school that they had just sank $3 million into repairing. But they ran through that DSEG money. They ran through them billions. And J.E. Dunn was the one who built it up and ran through it like that. And so that's what I'm telling y'all is we got to learn politics. George, you said when you don't know that Uncle Tom was the real one. That's true. Pendergast moves still live literally all over the U.S. That's literally how our Supreme Court justices are chosen, because of Pendergast moves. You're right. You said women and minority-owned business, and now they included disadvantage. So disadvantage can be a white man whose business does not make a lot of money. So it's women, minority, and disadvantage-owned businesses. And Forrest Tyson said 20 to 28%. Okay, so 20 to 28% of the city's, and Lyne's thinking is make it even, 50-50, non-minority and minority. Non-minority gets 50%, minority gets 50% access. That levels the playing field, but everybody tells me my thinking is off center. So I, even in compromise, say 40%. I think 40% it should be the lowest, because it stops the swallowing up of the contracts. And then, because it's still a beautiful thing that the minority-owned businesses get their 20 to 28%. But could you imagine if the laws were changed? And I think they did that in Atlanta. I think in Atlanta, when it started booming back in the 90s, they made it to where, was it 40% or 48? I'm going to look it up on break and I'll come back with it. But they made it to where like 40, it was a high percentage of the contracts had to go to minority businesses. And I remember having a friend who was like, and he was 23 and he was a concrete mason. And he was like, I'm going down there. He had just finished Job Corps. And he was like, I'm going down there and I'm work for a company for a little bit, and then I'm gonna start my own company. And I think I was like 19, probably 20. And I'm looking at him like, yeah, right. And then I read about him online 2018. And they were spotlighting his business, and he's a multimillionaire. He did exactly what he set to do. And he was like 22, 23 when he went down there. So, but they made it easy for him to say, I'm going to go down to Atlanta, work for a company as a concrete mason, learn what I got to do, and then I'm going to open my own business and do it. And he's successful. And like he said, he had a plan. Here in Kansas City, it would be hard pressed for a young black man to have that kind of plan. He can still do it. He can still do it. But with 20 to 28%, that's a very small fraction. He's fighting against a whole bunch of people for that contract, unless he goes into something that a lot of other minority businesses aren't doing. Well, he would have to look at the allocations and the bids that were won and decide where the minority businesses are and where they aren't. But we're going to break in 1 minute. But what I'm saying is, we have the power as black people. We have the power to turn this thing on its head and to own it. We have the power, but it's up to us to utilize that power, to stop having excuses for the reason why, we can turn somebody into a multimillionaire, dang near billionaire for cosmetics, hair and lashes and clothes, but then we can't use that money to get what we want. There's a way to get what we want without ever having to raise our voice, without ever having to raise a hand. And the way to get what you want, let that money talk. Let that money talk. And that's what I live on, man. I learned so much. And I just recently started driving Uber, and there was a very wealthy man, non-minority, and he was like, "You're my wife." And I'm like, "No, I ain't. You ain't gonna put no insurance policy on me and kill me." That's just how I think. I'm sorry. But he and I were going back and forth, and he was like, "Well, minorities can't handle these contracts and this, that, and the other, blah, blah." And I was like, "Yes, they can if you give them the money." See, the reason why they can't handle the contracts is because they're not getting enough money to turn a profit off of the contract. So we'll discuss that. I'm gonna look up what Atlanta made their percentage to. And this is the Lyne't Gray Show. I will stick with me. I'll see you back in 2 minutes. Share this video on a watch party, because I'm not able to share it right now. I didn't bring my laptop, but share this video on a watch party, and I will see y'all back in 2 minutes. The Lyne't Gray Show on KUAW.
Hey everybody, this is Scatter. You might remember me from way back in the Zodiac days. Be sure and check us out. We're going to be here every day from 2 o'clock to 3 o'clock. It's old school with Scatter. Scatter's back. Check me out on the internet, KUAW.org. For all you Paseo Central Manulite people, want you to remember that in the 60s and the 70s, we had some good music. If you want to hear some of the Temptations, some of Smokey Robinson, some of the Tim Free, things that you don't get every day, DJ Scatter remembers. He's going to have it for you.
Bank of Blue Valley is a proud sponsor of KUAW Radio. At Bank of Blue Valley, we believe that an understanding of financial values sets individuals up for a strong future. Whether you want to talk about checking and savings accounts, review lending alternatives, or discuss starting your own business, we have the right people to listen and advise. Visit us at bankbv.com to get started today. Member FDIC, Equal Housing Lender.
You're listening to 98.5. This is KUAW, Kansas City, Missouri. Glad you're listening. Keep tuning to the new voice in Kansas City.
Hi, my name is Felania Johnson, and I'm a freshman at Purcell Academy of Fine and Performing Arts.
My name is Mayan Charity, and I'm a 7th grader at Lincoln College Preparatory.
STEM is a program about science, technology, engineering, and math. More girls our age should get more involved in the program because there's a shortage of black girls in STEM.
African American women make up just 2% of engineers. Roughly 1/3 of students of color express an interest in STEM. Most black women think that STEM is too challenging. We are sisters in STEM, and we are encouraging young black teens to join STEM.
If you're interested in more information, please contact Ina Montgomery at 816-866-6340.
Tycon Company, LLC, specializes in a wide range of construction services, which includes the removal and replacement of concrete curbs, sidewalk, driveway, and paving. They pride themselves in the quality of their service, but more importantly, with the quickness in which they provide those services. Their primary goal and objective is to achieve 100% customer satisfaction, and they won't settle for anything less. Their crews travel within a 100-mile radius of the Kansas City, Missouri metropolitan area, which includes...
And we're back. Thank you for sticking with the Lyne't Gray Show on KUAW. I did find the Atlanta percentage, which is 35%. I'm reading from rollingout.com, and it says many see the city of Atlanta and assume diversity, especially where the government is concerned, is a non-issue. Atlanta does indeed have a progressive policy where 35% of all city contracts must be with minority contractors. But that is a sharp contrast to the less than 1% of the minority contracts from the state of Georgia. I read something that said, let me go further down. They introduced a minority inclusion bill for the state of Georgia, but they were saying each year it gets drowned out in the sea of Republican-dominated legislators who refuse to even allow the matter to be discussed, let alone be voted on. How do you get people to even discuss legislation that's brought up in our favor? How do you get them to discuss the bills? Now, here's the thing. You cannot just outright hand them money. So how do you get the politicians in your favor? Lobbyists. That's the reason why so many people hate lobbyists, because lobbyists work for the money, and lobbyists get paid based on the votes that come in their favor. Lobbyists are taught to schmooze the right people, and an effective lobbyist, when they schmooze the right people, the vote always goes in their favor. So a lobbyist says, I see you have this program in your area for this, that, and the other. How would you like if I threw in, let's say, $100,000 into your program? And the person's like, sure. So, okay, you're going to throw $100,000 into my program. What's the catch? Oh, well, here's the, we just really, it's what's really important to us is bill number such and such that needs to get heard and then put into a hearing and then put into committee and then put into a hearing, or however way it goes. That's what's important to us. That bill needs to be passed. And I tell people, if you want to learn how politics goes, politics, yes, it is a popularity game, but politics is a money game. And if you want to learn how politics go, just simply pull the gifts for the politicians for your state. Pull their gifts. Pull the gifts for the I don't know where they report it for your city. But then federal, you ain't even got to pull their gifts. Start with their income when they walked in the door. And then look at their income now. Start with their, see, here's one thing. Everybody was so focused on Trump's tax returns. I have no problem with Grabham. I'm going to use Forrest's word. I have no problem with Grabham's tax returns. Why? Because he's a businessman. Now, I have problems with all those tax returns that they were comparing him to, because all them people been in politics. Where you get that kind of money to have to pay that much money in taxes? Where you get that kind of money from? You've been in politics all these years. You ain't been hanging out with the gangsters and the thugs and getting them to sign up stuff so you can build up Atlantic City and build golf courses in Russia and stuff. Where did you get that money from? Because when I look at your income that you receive from the government for doing your politician's job, where'd that extra income come from? How you paying $100,000 in taxes 300 something, 400, 500. And what threw me for a loop, sister girl, Miss AKA, I ain't gonna call her name. How are you paying that much money in taxes? What did you do? What was your income? Did you write some movies? How did you pay that? Where? See, that's where we as a people need to start thinking progressively and be proactive instead of reactive. Because see, when I saw Grabham's tax returns, I was like, oh, he rich. He ain't no billionaire, but he still ain't broke like everybody try to make him seem like. And yes, I would have pulled some dumb stuff like that and wrote off my kids' pair of socks. I ain't even gonna lie. When you owe the federal government for years, you be trying to get them the way they got you. Y'all, I promise for God, I just paid off the federal government this year. And that was the best feeling when they sent me a thing saying I was paid in full, and I just cried tears. Paid off the state of Missouri finally in 2019, and they did something and took all my money, and I had surgery, and but they showed me I was paid off. You cry real tears, because when you owe taxes, and that ain't a fun thing. And so, and I for years was on the end of owing taxes because we made so much money. I didn't qualify for earned income credit. The first year I qualified for earned income credit was 2018, and they took all of my money. They took all of my money. I was like, yes. I was happy. I was like, shoot, I got that return, and the return was like $8,700. And the state of Missouri was like, nope, we want our $7,000. And the federal government was like, we'll take what's left over, and you still owe us $9,000. So I can understand why he make moves like that with taxes. I can understand that. But what I'm saying is, when you get to looking at career politicians, where that money come from? Where that money come from? How you way up there when you don't even make that much money? And so that's where we need to become proactive instead of reactive. We need to look at those things. Now, back to how we accomplish our goals as a community of people. First things first, I'm going to say this, and this is addressed to everybody. Forrest Tyson said more than 6% of the minority electorate has to vote. Exactly. George said MEC, yep. Our voting record is abysmal. It is horrible unless we have something that we're interested in, like President Obama's election or Bill Clinton's election or things of that nature. George, you said, what corporation do they own? Exactly. Forrest said, if it's not the returns, it's devaluation of his property holdings for tax break purposes and exaggerating the same properties to obtain loans. Exactly. And that's all he did. If you look at exactly what he was doing, it's a breakdown exactly the way Forrest said he did it. He literally took that deduction and made sure that that property was valued at lower than what it was supposed to be for tax purposes. But then when he went to go get the loans, he put it back up. That's like, I have a house, and according to Jackson County, the house is valued at $50,000. And I'm explaining to y'all what Trump did. According to Jackson County, the house is valued at $50,000 on the tax registry thing. 50 plus. It's on the east side. But the what do you call those? Gentrifiers want to come in and pay me max 28,000. So what Trump did was took the gentrifiers number, put it on his taxes. But then when he went to go get the loan, he took the Jackson County number because it gave it more 30,000 more value. You get what I'm saying? And like you said, Forrest, that's fraud. But who's going to enforce him doing fraud? Nobody. They wouldn't even freaking impeach the man. Because why? Trump told us in the debate that he owned everybody on Capitol Hill. Now y'all see how money talks. People forget that. He said, the only person who said, you don't own me, because I've never been in politics, was who? Ben Carson. Now do y'all see how it works? He told everybody, I own all of y'all. I done contributed to all of your campaigns. And I've contributed good money to all of your campaigns. And the only person to say, not I, said the cat, was Ben Carson. So now you see why they put up this little bit of effort to make it seem like they were trying to impeach him when they wasn't. Because they impeached Clinton for lying over a sexual act. Because he lied about it. Not because he stole money, not because he did anything wrong. They impeached President Clinton for lying over a sexual act. He did not do anything to put the country in jeopardy. He did not do anything wrong financially. It was a discretion between him, that young intern, and his wife. And they impeached that man. But you cannot get exactly, George, the value of what it can, not the value of what it can be bought for, because you talking about the investor's value. Yes, exactly. But now y'all see, and see, that's why I tell people to watch Capitol Hill, watch all your politicians, watch their moves. They'll make it seem like they're putting forth a valiant effort on behalf of the people. And they're not. They're not. And so that's why I talk about informed voting. Truly informed voting. Go to Ballotpedia and pull up your ballot and know what you're voting on. Know who you're voting for. Know that. There was this one judge in Kansas City, and I'm not going to mention his name, but there was this judge in Kansas City that every time I went to go vote, and this was before the internet, I never knew who he was, but I had a feeling something would say, vote for him. It wasn't no something, it was God. Vote for him. Vote for him. Vote for him. And I finally met this judge in person, just talking. And I said, that's a really nice person. He's a really good person. And you could feel his energy. And he gave me his name. And then this was right before the election. He was not campaigning at all. I think we were just in a store. Some kind of way we wound up talking. Some kind of way. And he was a genuinely good person with a genuinely good spirit. And I sat down to vote, and there was that man's name as a judge. And I said, that's why God kept telling me to vote that man in. And I voted for him, and he got voted in again. And he's not a criminal court judge. But the spirit on that man. So I tell a lot of people, don't allow people to influence your vote. But now we have the internet, so we need to vote literally informed, because we have the internet now. George said, Forrest said, follow the money. I'm sure China holds most of his debt. Yeah, they do. That's why Grabham has turned on them. He's trying to default on billions. And I've been telling people this. When he got into it with Huawei, y'all remember, he got into it with Huawei while I was in Ghana. And so the news that you get in Africa is real because it's not controlled by the U.S. And they said that this was because he was having issues with China. That's what they said in Ghana. They said he was attacking Huawei because he's having issues with Ghana. And that's the reason why he shut down Huawei, being able to if you notice, there are no Huawei phones sold anywhere in the U.S. Not anymore, because he banned them all in 2019. In May of 2019, and I specifically remember that because I was watching what goes on in U.S. on African TV, and they reported clearly. Him and China's beef is a real beef because China holds a whole bunch of his debt. Now, I tell a lot of people what's going on with Russia is not some collusion as far as political. Russia got him because Russia got him on some stuff that he wasn't supposed to be doing. And so it's not, his is not a political game with Russia. His is a business deal that he made with Russia. Has nothing to do with politics, has to do with business. And it's a business deal that he made with Russia that he's trying to make good on by going light on Russia. That's exactly what it is. He already knows Russia got him. And he knows they do, because they said Russia said that they got video or pictures of him doing something inappropriate. But see, that's what I'm telling everyone. The money, follow the money game. One thing a lot of people don't know, people don't know that Saudi Arabia pretty much owns the U.S. That's why they're able to get away, because Saudi is not just in good with Trump or getting passes from Trump. Saudi got passes all the way back. You know why? Saudi owns all our oil fields. The U.S. oil fields probably, I think, and I have to look at us, please don't quote me on this, but I think 1%, it's a real low percentage, somebody can look it up and let me know, of U.S. oil fields that are owned by U.S. citizens. The rest are owned by Saudis. So what we ain't gonna do is start no mess with Saudi Arabia, because they own our oil fields. I tell people this, how many of y'all remember back in the 90s, it was either Bush or Clinton stopped China from buying up all of our empty properties here in the U.S.? I've been a news watcher since I was like 3. I think the spirit that came back and decided it wanted to be me was like, oh, I'm gonna use this little girl to get informed on everything. But I've been a news watcher since I was 3. I remember the earliest thing that caught my attention was Muammar Gaddafi put all the white folks at his convention that he was having. It was a press conference he had in Washington, D.C. or wherever. He put all the white people out, and he said Ronald Reagan treats his dogs better than he treats his black people. And then next thing you know, before Gaddafi could get back home, or sometime in that time frame, Ronald Reagan had bombed his house and killed his stepson and a couple of more kids and family members. And so as a kid, I remember this, and this happened when I was barely elementary school. So I've been following news for a long time. And the one thing that I remember staying up and watching was World News Tonight. They used to be my stuff, because they would tell the truth on World News Tonight. And one thing that they said was that, and they ran the story real quick. It wasn't even a long, let's talk about it, but they talked about, and I want to say it was Clinton. It was Clinton who put sanctions. Okay, do y'all remember when Clinton put sanctions on China, and that's how the Lexus car became a luxury car? That's the reason why you will never catch me buying a Lexus, because Clinton put sanctions on China and anything coming from Asia, and I don't know what happened, I forgot, but some kind of way they said, how will it affect, and you will see car brands that are normally at this price range will shoot up and become luxury cars, but they'll still be able to ship into the U.S. That's why I won't buy a luxury car from Asia, because the prices on that have never gone back down when some sanctions were dropped. Okay, so what happened was Clinton got into it with China because he stopped China from buying up all of the property in the U.S. A lot of people don't remember that. See, politics is a money game. Just like China's buying Africa right now. But they're buying it in a way that they're locking the land down for themselves and putting police stations and military bases in China, because what they are doing is they're paying for development, and it's a loan and they got to pay it back. See, y'all see how this works, and this is why I was telling black people, we got to put our money together. We got to put our money together. We got to put our votes together, because money is power in this world. Money is absolute power in this world. And majority of the people who are in politics, I would say 98.999999% of the people who are in politics are in it for the money. And those who are not in it for the money get drowned out by those who are, and they cannot progress. Or when they do progress, they can't get anything done because their bills won't get heard. See how it works? So this is just me saying we have to do informed voting. Let's see. George, you said the company would shut down several cell phone companies in the States. Exactly. Lexus is Toyota. Is that a Chinese-made company? Because I remember Chinese, and Forrest, you said he put tariffs on them. Yeah, I remember that. But I was a kid, so I don't remember the exact phrase that he used. But I do remember what he did caused it to raise the prices of the Asian foreign cars to where you're paying for a car that should literally be max $20,000 right now. you're paying $30, $40, $50,000 for this car and it ain't worth it. And that's the reason why I don't buy foreign luxury cars from Asia because of that. From the 1990s, go research it. Let me know what you found. But I just want us, this is my show about informed voting and alternative ways to get what we want. The main way to get what we want is to put your money where your mouth and your anger and your emotion is. Number one, you can vote. And you can vote in the people you want. But as you see, when President Obama got in office, things did not change much for black people because we were not the ones who paid to put him in office. If you want to see a change in politics, you got to own the politicians. That's all it is to it. You'll see. Y'all see how the LGBT, they made a come up because they own the politicians. Y'all see everybody who made a come up over us because they own the politicians. Y'all need to get it together. We need to start informed voting. We need to start putting our money where our mouth is and hire us some really good lobbyists. Hey, go on ahead. Once we put our money where our mouth is, go steal the best lobbyists from all the other companies or super PACs. And then vote. And we got this. And start planning 30 to 100 years in advance. We might not, as Martin Luther King said, I might not get there with you. He said he's been to the mountaintop. When will we decide to stand on the mountaintop and look over and see what the future holds, knowing we might not get there to see it, but we will be successful? This is my take on voting, how to change things for us as a people, and informed voting, and how to get people to give us what we want. This is Lyne't Gray Show on KUAW. Share this show. Tyrone Gathers Jr. and I will be broadcasting live from the what is it called? The cup, the classic cup for Chef Jamar Gridine's red carpet event. And we will be broadcasting live on October 10th. And we look forward to seeing y'all. And once again, this is the Lyne't Gray Show on KUAW. Knowledge, understanding, and wisdom, Kansas City's global community radio station. I will see you all next Tuesday at 8 o'clock p.m. Take care. Bye-bye.
Hey everybody, this is Scatter. You might remember me from way back in the Zodiac days. Be sure and check us out. We're going to be